Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am doing an impromptu show because I wasn't going to do a show, so I didn't schedule a candidate. And then I kind of went through withdrawal and I figured I'd still like to do a show anyway. So given things going on online, nothing really out of the ordinary. But I was kind of inspired to just say, well, let me take this chance and just do kind of an impromptu, kind of panel, if you will, on in the Bernie movement, what we have seen from the beginning to now, how much on social media things have changed. So I did ask two of my Facebook friends to join me, who I've known through the movement. So I'm going to introduce them. Who would like to start?
Right. I'm Ray. I'm Carly. If you want to start, that's fine. Go ahead.
No, you can go first.
Oh, okay. No worries. All right. My name is Ray. I've been active in the Bernie campaign since he announced on day one. Traveling the country, doing a lot of activism and organizing. And since the campaign ended, I've held the state Senate race, and now I'm currently working with two congressional races here in Mass. Gary Rzinski, who's running against Joe Kennedy in Boston, and then Bill Sembrello, who's running against Bill Keating up in Massachusetts District 9 on the Cape. So trying to put those networks together in Massachusetts.
Awesome. How about yourself, Carly?
So, okay, where to start? So I was in the Bernie campaign in the Philadelphia area. I live in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, which is about 40 minutes from Philadelphia, and I was active, not at the beginning, but maybe about 4 months into his campaign. So I was still learning about him, and then I realized I love him, and I pretty much befriended everyone across the country and even the world, just because that's really what we all did. I knocked on doors, I canvassed, and I was really burned up by what the DNC did and what the Clinton campaign did and what media, corporate media, not independent media, corporate media did. And it kind of infuriated me and enough to actually decide to run for judge of elections in 2017 in my precinct. I didn't win, but I ran. And then from there, I got involved in the indivisible groups. And I found that indivisible groups sort of suck, basically. And they suck so much that they don't want to hear the truth about Democrats. So that was fun. And recently I've actually been getting involved in my local Revolution chapter. And we're planning on nominating one candidate for PA5, the congressional district that I live in. And I can talk about her as well.
Which one is she?
Molly Sheehan.
Oh, okay.
She is, I think I'm getting this right, but I could be getting this wrong. She's a bioengineerist or bioscientist.
I think biochemist, but I could be wrong.
I should really know this by now, considering I'm not for her. And
she's really smart. Put it that way.
There's a lot of scientists running now. Jess Phoenix.
There are.
Mindy Mesmer in New Hampshire. Again, I mentioned Gary Rzinski and Bill Sembrello. And now Carla's bringing another one to my attention. And I'm sure there's a few others that are just kind of out. This assail on the truth is definitely, I think, inspired a lot of good people from science backgrounds to run.
Well, yeah. And I've had a lot of teachers, too, on my show, candidates who were teachers, which is also amazing. Both of those things. We need more nurses and teachers and scientists and more things like that. More women, as long as they're the right women.
Right, not just because, but...
Or no.
Was that?
not just because, but
Right.
because qualified women, certainly we need better representation in Congress.
Yes. What were you going to say, Carly?
She is actually, I think, a bioengineer, unless I'm wrong. All I'm looking at is something from the School of Engineering and something else at Penn. And it says that she received the World Molecular Imaging Society for Young Investigator Award.
Wow.
So she's awesome. She's
Yeah.
awesome and smart. And when I was actually torn up until a few weeks ago. I canvassed her 2 different candidates, and I ultimately chose her because she is the only candidate in the race, and there are actually 12 people running in my race. There were 16.
Wow.
On the Democratic Party ticket, and I am still a Democrat. I don't know if that's the best decision.
What about you, Ray? Are you still a Dem?
Oh, I mean, I registered Dem. I had moved during the Bernie campaign to Massachusetts, so of course I was going to register as a Dem so I could vote for him. Did I go online and change it? No. Am I a Dem? That's what I'm registered as. But no, I'm not sending checks to the DCC, or I'm not support. I don't support somebody because I'm not a team Dem. I just happen to be registered that way. In order to support the candidates I'm working for, I'll definitely have to stay that way. But I come from the takeover philosophy. I mean, the bottom line is you got to unemploy them. When these people talk about starting a new party, I'm not going to crap on that, but it's an extra step. And that's fine if you think we need a new party, but ultimately I see it as somebody's people and somebody's got to win. If they can do it as a Green, great. If they can do it as independent, like Tim Canova, great. If they choose to do it as a Democrat, great. But let's get what's in there. We know the problem is what's in there is terrible, and we gotta start unemploying these people by beating them at the ballot box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think ever since I started, interviewing candidates, after interviewing over 60 of them, from all different states across the country, I have learned how different each state is set up as far as rules. As far as starting a people party, hey, I love that idealistically, but what it comes down to is when you research, even states like Texas or California, they have so many things in place to make sure that you do not run Green or independent. It's systematically set up to be those 2 parties, Dem and Republican.
Right. And that's why we have to dismantle the existing system, in order for something new to come. We've got to get in there and kind of change these things and break them down, like you said.
Voting.
Yeah, so I guess all 3 of us were at Occupy DNC.
Yes, I was there. I was there for 4 days. I think I left town on Wednesday. I had to get back to the grind, but yeah, that was an amazing time.
It was amazing, but I still have PTSD from it. I stayed for 6 days, and it was the most proudest week of my life, but the most heartbreaking week of my life, but also the most beautiful week of my life, because I couldn't have survived that shit without all those burners. 40,000 of, activists and Bernie supporters and people who were there saying, fuck you, Hillary. Fuck you. Fuck what you're doing. And then while we were standing there, DWS was forced to step down. So that was kind of euphoric, the timing of that. So, the people there and everything was what made it tolerable. But yeah, what about you guys? What was your takeaway from that week?
I I think just to be surrounded by other Burners and other Bernie people made it everything. It was helpful because I'm still kind of reeling by what they're still doing. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Carly, they talk about, that we have to organize for peace as hard as, the other side organizes for war. And that's one of the things that progressives need to have a reckoning with. These people, they don't stop. They work 24/7. They've got, they don't, they're not worried about resources, so to speak. I mean, while we're like recharging our batteries or finding ourselves or doing all these things, they're pressing ahead with their agenda. They're not going to stop because we ask them to or because we challenge them. I mean, you really have to look at it as like a battle. They're not going to meekly, scurry away because we want them to. We've really got to band, and people misuse the word unity. I mean, I'm not saying unity, let's just rally around the letter D and everything will be wonderful. But somehow, I think progressives have got to figure out a way to work together and, and just continue to build what Bernie, because Bernie's not going to be around forever. He's not the long-term future. So we have got to build. Well, I think that's one of the things that would make Bernie happiest. You know what I mean? Is that, like, Joy, you were saying earlier about, oh, you're just a Bernie fan or you're part of the Bernie cult, or people talk about that type of stuff. And it's like, what Bernie's trying to do is show us, is make us grow up and say, look, like, this isn't about me. You all don't need me. You know what to do, right. But will you do it? And that's to me, if you want to do honor to Bernie's movement, I mean, that's really what you got to do. You got to get your skin in the game and go after it every day.
Yeah, and you have to get involved somehow. And am I ever?
Yes.
Okay.
And by the way, we're trying to make it fun in our campaign, Joy, while getting the headsets ready. We brew our own beer for our campaign. So our volunteers get hooked up, okay? Because we figured out a way to make our campaign fun. Because, volunteer meeting, right? Who wants to do that on a Sunday night? But you know what? We brew our own beer, we serve it up at our volunteer meetings, and we make it fun. And we want to try and teach other campaigns to do that. Because trust me, if you get a guy, pitching a guy and say, hey, we're coming, we're having a few beers on us, come check out our campaign, people do it. It's a social thing, and it's really fun, and it works. So, hopefully we can get a few more campaigns. We're actually trying to open up a brewery so we can support progressive campaigns.
Oh, that's so amazing. That's awesome.
I would totally go there if I could.
There you go. Right. So we'll set up. We'll have to work on getting. I'm sorry, I forget her name again. You're the one in Pennsylvania.
Molly Sheehan.
Molly Sheehan, right? Basically, I think for the 2020 cycle, when we can all ride the coattails of the presidential race, because that's got the most participation. Oh man, we'd love to be setting up, places to brew our own beer, which we can do, and make these, make the volunteer meetings really exciting.
Yeah.
Well, if you feed people and give them beer, yeah, I mean, you've won them over, essentially. What was one of your I know you talked about what I had mentioned about being called a fan and things like that. It seems like so many times we are belittled as kids, and I mean, I'm almost 40 and I look young, so I get that all the time. You just want him because you'll get free college. Well, I paid for my own college already. Mm-hmm. You just want him because, you'll get healthcare. I have healthcare. You just want him for $15 an hour. I make more than 50. You know what I mean? It's very like you're in it because you want something. Mm-hmm. And then also we're always fans. We're not supporters. And the second you defend him, you will say things like, I don't agree with him on everything. He pisses me off sometimes. Sometimes I want to shake him. And then they'll still say, well, you're defending him because you're a Bernie worshiper. You worship him. Did I just say I disagree with him on some things? But still, if you defend him, you will get called a Bernie worshiper. That's a fact. And it's so frustrating because it's like that's all they have to come back to us is we're a worshiper. And I say, if I was a worshiper, I would have voted for Hillary when he asked me to, and I sure as fuck wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
So how do you guys respond when people tell you that crap? Because I know we all deal with it.
I don't respond well. Let's put it that way. I try to handle these fools, and then I realize that more than half the time you just can't even get through to them. I on my Instagram account, there was this person a very long time ago, maybe a few months back. She was an avid Hillary supporter, probably still is. I think her name was something Ruth Ann, maybe Davidson or Oshkodal. I don't know, some weird last name, which Davidson is not. But regardless, I would post things relating to Bernie or something that he did, and she always came back with facts about a blog post, or I don't know, his vote on something or other, but she never actually provided a source. And I asked her over and over again to provide a source, and I actually provided source in comments on Instagram, which is hard enough to do on a phone, by the way. So I just don't deal with them. I block them outright.
A lot of people post memes, and I'm like, okay, but where are you getting this from? Where, it's not good enough. People search for things to get on Bernie. They search. Whereas Hillary, take your pick. I could go off for 5 hours right now giving you fact after fact why she sucks. But Bernie, you got to dig for shit. And then you come up with a winter coat. And that's how you're going to disrespect him.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Oh my God, he had a winter coat.
Which in Vermont, you need a winter coat.
No, he's in Vermont. They don't need coats.
Talk about it too, he's the millionaire and blah blah blah. And it's yes, he's been making a great salary in the House of Representatives and the Senate for 40 years. People, it's not extraordinary for someone his age who's worked as long as he has, and his wife, who are fairly successful in their vocations and their professions, to accumulate $1 million. And they don't even have that. He's old. He's not 30. With this stuff. So, statistics can be totally manipulated, and basically they're useless unless you really want to put in the analysis around them. But people who say 75% of the people do this or 50% do that, and they draw the wrong conclusions from the most elementary statistics. So you really need to dig in on some stuff, again, because if we're talking about millionaires and we're talking about somebody who's 25 versus somebody who's Bernie's age, nearly 80, there's a big difference, so to speak. So, I find that there's, a lot of criticisms, like you said, that are pretty baseless. But going back to your original question, I don't really defend or Bernie online, in the sense that I'm not looking to, I'm not sitting around engaging people. When I'm online, I'm organizing, I'm networking, I'm promoting other candidates, I'm working. So, I'm not into getting into an hour-long argument with somebody who thinks that Hillary can't do anything wrong or Trump. Half the population doesn't even vote. The other half pulls the lever once every 4 years, so to speak. Participation is our biggest problem. That's why Bernie said, you got to get out the streets. You got to run for office. In other words, you have to participate. That's why they get away with everything. Is because nobody's watching them, and showing up once every 4 years doesn't cut it in democracy.
It really doesn't.
So rather than, you're right, rather than engage in an argument that I know is going to go nowhere, because the forum is no good. People are much smarter online than they are face to face. Everybody online knows everything, but get them at the door and they're going to be, much more reluctant to call you a name or treat, and you've got a better chance to kind of cut through the noise. So I would suggest, if your experience is mainly getting in arguments online, get out into the field and go knock some doors for some of these great candidates that are running on Bernie's platform. That's what's going to get the job done. Hardly anyone participates in a primary. Think about that. It's like these congressional primaries in our district, 3.5% of the 572,000 voters will show up. So when people say, "Oh my God, your guy's running against Joe Kennedy," it's an uphill climb, but there's no reason why we can't build a ground game and motivate people to get out the door. This guy's a credible scientist, Gary Rosinski. Same with Bill Cembrillo. It's a numbers game. Can we build an operation that's going to make enough phone calls and knock on enough doors? To create the awareness, but you're certainly not going to break, any ground, hanging out online, getting in arguments.
Well, I think you touched on something. When I spoke with a candidate the other day who was running in an area where he didn't think he was going to win. However, the candidate he was running against was very Democrat, to the point where he was centrist at best. And he said, at the very least, he was hoping to make him go more left.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened. You come in there and you talk about Medicare for all, things like that, and then the other person running says, "Oh shit, maybe I got to start talking about that too." So it's just kind of like, what Bernie did with Hillary. He made her have to talk about such things. She didn't have a choice.
Yeah. Right. She wanted to cruise through that whole primary completely unmolested. And Bernie, he really screwed up. Her plans were like 20 years in the making. When they were in the White House, the chant used to be A to Bill, A to Hill. She moved right out, during Bill's second term, right into New York, set up that Senate race, position herself. And so after she lost to Obama in 2008, there was you knew she was just going to have everything on lockdown for 2016.
Hell yeah.
And then, and so they had all these plans they were making for so long, centered around this woman. And then Bernie came in and, he mucked shit up is right. He screwed up and that's why that's one of the reasons why he did so well, was because they had this huge colossal plan in motion and they couldn't turn it around. The thing was just set on its course and there was nothing they could do to steer that ship. At that point, and then like Bernie was kind of like a big iceberg, I guess, so to speak, and they couldn't really, they weren't able to navigate. They weren't nimble enough to navigate around his campaign.
They really weren't. But the thing is, like, they really could have been.
Sure.
They really could have been if they had gone left, but they didn't. She chose a VP that was more to the right of her, that recently voted to roll back regulations, I think, on the banks.
Hillary would have won had she run as a Republican. Because that's really where her philosophy lies.
It is. She was a Goldwater Girl, for Christ's sake. Like, and this keeps coming in my mind. So, like, I think, Ray, you were talking about how Bernie made her talk about certain things. And there's a certain clip that I think is still so funny to this day, where she's talking to at a rally, I think in the summer or something of 2016. Or no, it was during the primary. But regardless, she said it's time we have a real conversation about theoretical solutions to healthcare. It makes me laugh because we have the solution. We know what it is. It's universal health care or Medicare for all, however you want to call it. Because, for one, it actually saves money. It gets rid of the middleman. It brings the national debt down.
Yeah, they don't have to advertise either because they're competing against each other.
Mm-hmm.
You pull out all the costs of competition, you create economies of scale, you remove the middleman, the insurance companies, you get better health outcomes, prevention is a lot cheaper than cure, right? So you start to all of a sudden look at all these avenues and you're like, this is how we're going to improve the healthcare. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Carly.
The thing, it seems like it always comes down to the fact that, Citizens United. It just always comes down to that. You have people taking money from Big Pharma. They don't want Medicare for all. They don't want to lower prescriptions. We saw that when Bernie came out with the legislation to lower prescription drug prices, and progressives like Cory Booker didn't sign that. I wonder why. Things like that. And I had Congressman Ro Khanna on my show, and he came up with legislation where he brought it to Congress and said, anyone who agrees not to take any more super PAC money, period, while, serving in any capacity, sign this. And including Roe, 6 people signed in all of Congress. That's a problem. They're already rich. So
I think it goes beyond that, though, beyond Citizens United, because you take a guy like Joe Kennedy, he's got $40 million. He's a family dynasty. I mean, even some pharma exec is not, you know what I mean? He's not gonna take any risks for some chump. He doesn't even, but so I mean, it honestly, to me, it goes beyond just the mechanics, like, oh, he's just bought. When somebody because it's very tough to buy a Joe Kennedy. Sure, he'll take the money, he'll do the stuff, and, he'll go along with them. But I think he's going along with them for a different reason, because he doesn't need the money. It's the fact that, what they're trying to do is cut down on our freedoms. How many people stay at a crap job because they're tied to their benefits and they can't lose their health care, especially once they have a family. I'm single. My health. I haven't been to a doctor in 30 years. But right, you have a family, you need these benefits, and then and so that's part of the reason why I think is because it's a way for these corporations to exercise control over you. And health is one of the things that people get stressed out about, obviously, which is another health thing. In itself, it causes more problems. So I think it just goes beyond the fact that many are bought. I certainly wouldn't disagree with that, but I think it goes beyond even to a behavioral point that they're better off having control of the society in its entirety.
Yeah, totally valid point.
That really is valid because I don't know much about Joe Kennedy's wealth and how he accumulated it. But it probably had to do with the fact that he has control over, I guess, maybe how the system works in a sense and how money comes to him. I don't know enough, but
Well, what he does is he's rich, right? And he gets these monies and he can pass it around now. And he can support every state rep in his district, every state senator, every organization. I mean, you spread that money around. Oh, Joe Kennedy, he did this, he did that. And that's really what it is.
Okay, so it's kind of like him like
there's
spreading influence.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like again, like these state senate campaigns. I mean, they all latch on to somebody like a Joe Kennedy. They all want blah blah blah.
Right.
Right. So it's like whereas my guys, they're not going around stuffing everybody's pockets with money or anything like
Right.
that. Like again, these candidates can donate to other candidates. So imagine like a Kennedy, putting $2,700 in all hundreds of our state reps and our state senators and things like that. I mean, that's how you build these machines.
Yeah, so like for me, for my area, it comes to mind one of the candidates running for Congress or for representative, House representative in my district. Her name is Kay Scanlon, and she actually got Ed Rendell's email list, and as a result, the endorsement. So she has like $3,000 donations from one individual.
Right.
Time and time over. So it says that's kind of like the influence.
That's one of the things I would say too about progressive campaigns. They're being extorted for the data. If you remember, Wasserman Schultz tried to shut Bernie out from the NGP ban. Okay. Now, first of all, her nephew, I think it is, or brother, is the vice president of NGP ban. First of all, so it's a huge conflict of interest. But what they're doing is they're extorting grassroots candidates. Oh, we like Joe Kennedy, so Gary, if you want the ban, it's going to cost you $50,000. Oh, what? That's a Republican district. We'll give it to this candidate for $2,000, and that way she can go out and collect data for us. But we won't give her money or anything. She can go out and collect data, lose her race, and then we'll have the data. So grassroots, the managers of these grassroots campaigns, they need to learn to use the data tools to create target universes that are going to come together against this stuff, and they're out there. So we need to develop. They have Wellstone. Wellstone is basically centrist candidate training, establishment candidate training. And it's just a cut, copy, and what do they call those? Turnkey operations. But we, as progressives, I mean, we need to develop our own schools and do our own training, and we really need to support our candidates that are running for office. We can't say we're all about Bernie's message and all about these issues, and then when somebody turns around and runs for Congress, we can't, we've got to somehow come up with the money so that they can run, because again, grassroots doesn't mean unfunded, and even a grassroots campaign is going to need money for basic expenses like a campaign manager and literature and gas and food and those things. So somehow, we've got to figure out a way, to get people to believe and open up their checkbooks for these campaigns.
So kind of on that note, progressive, the word itself gets overused so much now. And, what do you guys, when you think progressive, what do you think of as like a definition? Like what picture comes in your mind? And not just a platform, because it doesn't even necessarily have to be a candidate, but if you would say, oh, this person's progressive or that idea is progressive, what do you envision? Carly, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I think they think independently, or at least try to. They definitely watch a ton of independent media, so they can get real unvarnished stories. And that also includes like reading independent media. So like Truthdig, Alternet.org, The Intercept, things like that. And I think progressives also kind of, I don't know how to say this, but they don't filter. They just say it like it is, and if people don't like that, sorry.
Fuck off. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ray,
Yeah.
how about yourself?
I mean, I don't use, I mean, I try and get around. I don't use labels too much. I try and take the conversation off that and just focus on, well, having a conversation, what's important to you. But, if you're going to pin me down and say, what is a progressive? To me, it's somebody who is smart enough to see the corporate agenda going on, and that the fact is that they're dividing us up by using these labels: Republican, Democrat, left, right. They're trying to make the people that are being screwed, like, in other words, they're I'll say it to my friends on the the Republican side of the aisle. We all agree on what the problems are. What we always fight about is what's the solution. Republicans will tell you, well, we're in too much debt. And but they blame the Democrats, and Democrats say, oh, well, we're in too much debt, but let's blame the Republicans. And to me, it's like, well, we're in too much debt, so how do we reduce the debt?
Right.
Let's forget about that. But it's very difficult, and I know a couple of candidates that decide, that were progressive, that are running as Republicans. There's Rob Ryersey in Arkansas.
Him on.
Yeah, he's been running down Arkansas. There's another gentleman in Tennessee. I forget his name. He's a former vet. And I think Sam Ronan did as well. It comes off to the top of my head. So somehow the conversation sometimes stops when that first label comes out. But again, I would think a progressive is someone who sees that there's corporate control of our food, of our water, of our medicine, of all the things we need to have a healthy and free lifestyle. And someone who's fighting against that agenda and organizing against it. You can't really be progressive if you're just, I don't really consider people who just, unless there's some reason, but if you're just out saying, well, I believe in this, and you hang out on Facebook and social media all day arguing and talking to people, well, that's not that, right, I understand too, people are busy, they work full time, and whatever, that's fine. Not everybody can go after it 24/7.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you've got, to when people are doing absolutely nothing, because I mean, everybody has time to do something. So to me, progressive is kind of like a mindset that you're gonna stop this corporate control. You're going to fight against that agenda, because if we don't really fight back with some purpose, really soon, we are going to be in a boatload of trouble, and it might be too late. Some of the things we're talking about again: food, water, medicine, air. I mean, everything that that you need to live a healthy and free life, are under attack.
That's very true. When I personally think of progressive, I think of the root word progress, and I think of we the people. It's really that simple to me. Like, we want progress for we the people. Whatever it takes, whatever it entails, we need that progress. Because right now, we're in the bipolar opposite of the progress realm. I digress a little, but before we went live, we were talking about today how the DNC cult is doing a lawsuit for the supposed election fraud from Russia, which there is no proof of, and they are doing their own lawsuit now, which is just so I guess I really wish we had a lawyer on, because my question is immediately was, can we use documentation in that trial where the DNC specifically said in a court of law that they can cheat and tough shit. Because if they were smart, they would drop any kind of cheating from either side. But the fact that they're doing this does nothing more than enrages us, even that much more. So what did you guys think when you saw that today, that news blurb come out that they were going to do a lawsuit about this so-called Russia hacking?
I mean, my first question was, are they trying to become more unpopular?
Yeah.
I mean, I've met, like, Keith Ellison at a people's rally nearby me, and he didn't talk about policy once the entire 3 hours he spoke. And the rally was the purpose of, like, the direction of the Democratic Party. The direction of the Democratic Party is, we have no direction. We have no future for you. We just have, here's a little bit of a gift. You get LGBTQIA rights. Yay. Good
right, and
you.
nobody gives us our rights anyway. Our right, if you look at anything that's a right, it's usually God-given and confirmed. So right, that you're absolutely right, Carly. They give this dog and pony show, and that's exactly what it is. Because rather than propose any solutions, they just want to point at Trump and hope it's so vile that people will just vote Dem and they won't have to do anything. I mean, it's clear that's the strategy. Like, oh, Trump is, Trump is this, Trump is that, and he is all these things that are terrible. But that's not a winning, not a way to get progressive change. To make progress, like you said, to just look at somebody and say, he's a jerk. He's doing this, he's doing that. It's like, well, that's fine. We all got that. But what are you going to do about it? And the time for lip service is definitely over. But I think a lot of that dynamic happens. And I can tell you this from my experience of working with congressional campaigns. These local town committees that are in every single town, are full of senior citizens that have been on them for years. And when I walk into those rooms and I start making noise, the funny is they want to check you out. They want to know who you are. They're going to step to you, and they're because like this is their little thing that they've been doing that they own, and they don't want to hear that things have to change or something new. Or Bob Massey was talking about how the Democratic Party needs to make room for young people. He's like, I look around this room. He was speaking to a town committee. I look around this room, and everybody. I mean, the youngest person, I think, aside from myself, was like 60 years old. And he's saying we've got to open it up to new people, to new ideas. And these people at the local town, they don't get it, because to them, what that means is that they have less say, less control. And that's what they've been kind of doing. That's their thing. They show up to the town. Like Burners don't show up to these town committees, and it's not because they're lazy. It's because we're learning how the infrastructure works. And at all these localities, what you're going to find is like an entrenched community that's usually old that that doesn't see a problem, because they when they grew up, banks paid interest. They didn't charge fees every time you use them like you do now. They paid interest. Houses were $5,000. A doctor would come to your house for $5-10. Job security. They weren't competing against 2 billion Chinese that are willing to work for 10 cents an hour. I mean, like they just don't understand how things have changed, and that the younger generation is dealing with a whole different dynamic.
We're dealing with I'm 20. Wow. I'm 27. And we really are dealing with an entirely different array of problems. So my background, I'm a librarian. I'm trying to get a full-time job now, and I work in tech services. Tech services and the internet and technology is changing so rapidly, and it's changing the job market in so many different fields, in so many ways. And we need to address that. And it's even changing like the scope of media and fake news you could even talk about, because there's a capability for fake videos now. So for instance, I saw a video of Obama speaking in a real video next to a fake video of him. You couldn't tell a difference. That changes the scope of politics and media in general because things can be faked. And it's just, hold on one second. We need to start addressing, and I want the Democratic Party to really start addressing the younger people who know these things. And I'm happy that I see it in my district because of some of the candidates being under 30. But you still need to listen to people like me because my local party doesn't want to listen to me.
They're going to listen too. They train too, these young Democratic clubs, okay, that they have on campuses. Young Democrats, Tennessee Young Democrats, New York Democrats, or university, right? They train these kids, and kids are so impressionable. If somebody's got a nice shiny object they're going to give them, oh my goodness, these kids will become the biggest sycophants ever. I've seen that, and I don't want to vilify everyone participating, but the problem is they get these kids young. They get these kids in these clubs, and these kids look up to these established people, and because they also they're majors in political science, so they want a career in politics. Many of them want to run for office, right. And so they don't see the problems because they're not, especially at college age, you don't have enough experience in the world, especially if you're coming from suburban America or something. Your mom sent you to UMass Amherst and they're paying your tuition. You're totally not exposed to the problems. And so then they just kind of, they all gravitate towards the establishment, and the establishment does things for them. And, and then they become little sycophants of that. I mean, I've seen kids in these clubs, they're endorsing. Some kid was asking about his legacy at the Young Democratic thing. Oh, what's my legacy? And I was like, are you kidding me? How about nobody knows? You have no legacy. Presidents have legacy, not kids in local clubs. But yeah, so they're taught the whole speak. I mean, I saw another 19-year-old kid giving an endorsement to Hillary because Trump was so bad. And he's out there actually telling other adults, people with 30 plus years experience in life, telling them that the right thing to do is this. And it's all, you can just tell. It's like, he cut, copied, and pasted that from his manual that was given to him by his superiors. But that's what I mean about organizing again. That's why they're organized. They're just like the military. They've got their young recruits. They put them through basic training. Then they put them out into the field, and we're a passionate bunch, and we've got the numbers, but we've got to get ourselves organized and working together at a whole new level, or we're gonna be facing the same problems.
Yeah, and actually, we kind of talked about something that I was thinking about a little bit. So we need to organize, or the left, the liberals, the Democrats, the progressives, the Greens, the independents. We all need to organize, but it's hard being on the left because, unlike the right, the left kind of vilifies sects of the left, and it's hard to communicate with people that are entirely different than you and have a different perspective than you. Like, for instance, I came across someone who's in my local Our Revolution chapter that doesn't support Medicare for all. Why? It boggles me, but he doesn't support Medicare for all. And that's quote unquote fine, but it's hard for me to come to grips with that. And I want to find a way that the left doesn't vilify the left, but until the left really becomes progressive, I don't know how that's possible.
Exactly. I made a post about this last night that, the DCCC, they came out with a new slogan, and I had to Google this because I received it on an envelope and I thought it was like the Onion sending me something. It stated that the DCCC, have you seen the other guys? That's their new campaign slogan. Swear to you.
Right, because they want to deflect attention away from all their failures and impotence. You know,
Of course.
Right? You know, I could get that same envelope from any Republican in the country and agree with it. You know, I mean, yeah, the other guys. That's great. But what are you gonna do?
When you talk to a Democrat, be it a candidate or what have you, and you ask them, what do you support about, what do you love about being a Democrat? Well, Trump, okay, no, that's not what I asked you. I'm asking you what you like about your party. Because the Republicans don't owe you shit. You didn't vote Republican, you didn't donate Republican. They don't owe you a damn thing. Democrats are the one who are fucking you over. They're the ones who are, you are the company you keep, essentially. And if you're with this this organization and you know that shit's going down, but you're still complacent with it, that says so much about your character. If you're not willing to just stand up and be like, look, election fraud's not cool. Paying no attention to people of color, not cool. Not having empathy, not cool. Telling people, you know, of an entire movement, you don't want them and need their votes, also not cool. So, you know, being a Dem, couldn't care less. Personal choice. But people have to acknowledge that they should put more effort into their party, because that's who they're representing.
Yeah, and not even that, but they need to just start to listen to the people. I mean, unfortunately, there are some candidates in my Democratic race for the primary that just aren't available via social media. I mean, I've reached out to at least 3 of the local candidates, and they're available, but this one person isn't. You need to be available, and that's kind of the problem with this person, because my current representative, Pat Meehan, he had a scandal, and he decided to not run for re-election. He basically fell in love with someone that worked in his campaign, or his in his office, I think, and basically he sexually assaulted her or something or other. But regardless, he was never accessible. He never answered any questions. He never spoke to the people. And if this person that's running isn't really going to talk to the people or be accessible via social media, because not everyone can go to a forum. People might be house-ridden or bedridden or might be disabled in some way, shape, or form. It's important for people to be accessible. I'm having so much trouble with that word. Accessible via social media, especially today. It's not hard to send a message on Twitter or Steemit or wherever it is, though I'm not familiar with Steemit. But just be available. And
and one of the things I think that ties into all of this is the fact that they're playing a game. They made the rules and they know the rules. You talk to most progressives not just progressives, you talk to most anybody, okay? They don't even know the rules of the game. Okay, so it's much, think about it. If we're playing a game and I made the rules and I know the rules and I'm playing against you and you don't know the rules, I'm going to beat you every time. Okay, so people need to learn, we need to re-energize civics education. But one of the things that I would stress, probably the best education you're ever going to get on politics, and one of the things that'll make you incredibly powerful, is to know how to run a campaign and to know how to run for office. Because then you know the rules and then they will fear you. Okay, so you can talk all you want about how you're progressive, and I marched, and I signed petitions, and I did this, and I did that. And ultimately, they're still going to laugh at you, because a march, what's the end result, right? Petitions, you're just asking somebody to do something that you could do yourself. In other words, like I just went and took a bus ride with an activist group. We were, so we could deliver petitions to the Massachusetts State House. And I'm thinking to myself, right here, we should have, I mean, we could have run everybody on that bus for state senate and state rep, and it would have been less time consuming and more efficient than than spending all the time making the phone calls, getting, just to petition people about $15 minimum wage, So it's like, if we want 15, by the time we're going to get it, it's going to need to be 20. But the point is this: let's get people running for office, okay? And then let's get them well trained. Let's get their campaign managers well trained. Let's learn the rules of the game. I mean, do you even know how to get on the ballot in your state? Things like that. I mean, there's more to it than people realize. But once you jump into that arena and understand the rules, then they.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't believe the amount of, I get emails all the time for, I know this candidate, or I'm a candidate. Can you, can I come on your show? Things like that. Every day I get at least one. So my first question is always, do you have a website? This, to me, I don't know. You're running. You have a website. I can't tell you guys how many people don't. I can't interview someone who doesn't have a website. That is so basic to me. Things like that. And it's like, sometimes it makes you wonder, how serious are these people? Like,
well, sure, that's a part of infiltration too. Please don't think that a lot of these people that are calling themselves progressives and running for office could easily be put up to suck resources. Wouldn't it be great to get Joy Marie to volunteer for candidate X's campaign, even though it's going nowhere? And if she donates, guess what? Now your money's flushed down the toilet. It's a great way, and the establishment does use that. It's a tool to wear you out and drain you of the resources. When you talk about people being serious, not that that's uniform, but trust me, there will be a bunch of people out there running as progressives whose job it is basically is to drain you of energy and resources and money.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's so many people running like that. And recently, like I was, so everyone, you both know Beto O'Rourke. He is running against Ted Cruz for Senate in Texas.
And people think he's a progressive and he's a neolib.
Yeah.
Right. And there you go. And they're going to point at Cruz. And I think there's universal agreement that he's repugnant and he'll probably win. But so there'll be a Democrat in that office. But, will he be progressive? No. Could he end up swinging votes? Could he be a deciding vote perhaps on some issues? Yes. But yeah, he's certainly not going to create the kind of progressive change that that we're going to need. I like Seema. Seema's actually helping.
Oh yeah, I've had Seema on. Many people are like, Beto, progressive. I'm like, he campaigned with Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
I think he's got oil money too. Most of his money
sure
comes
does.
From oil interests. So like, in other words, what difference does it make if O'Rourke gets in, if we're going to, just destroy the planet and get wiped out by global warming? I mean,
Texas was heavily impacted during hurricane season.
Right.
And it will happen again every year. And I mean, I would know. I surf in hurricane season. So it's nuts. And just, I don't know. I mean, I would rather, I guess, have Beto in Texas than Cruz, but by about this much.
Yeah, maybe for the time being until we can get somebody else, I would say. I mean, I think that's kind of the mindset that I have. Yeah, I'd rather have O'Rourke in there, but I'd still rather primary him again in 2020, or I guess he's running for Senate, so it would be 2024, 6-year term. But But yeah, I mean, we've got to continue, we've got to continue running and challenging them again, because that's the only thing they will take seriously, not all the screaming and yelling, but you got to go after their jobs.
Yeah, you definitely do.
We have the upper hand right now. We're in the primaries. We have the upper hand. We can say to them, look, you guys want our votes? Start listening to us. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have the balls to do that because they're so terrified that if we say, look, you're going to kind of, threaten them that we won't vote for them, that means that like Republicans will win. But we need to tell them, if we're your constituents, you need to listen to us. It's that simple. You took an oath to represent us, not yourself. So, I mean, it's just people focus so much on the presidential campaign, and it's huge, of course. But right now in 2018, we're all seeing this in our areas. We're all seeing people locally who are getting involved and everything, which is pretty beautiful. It's kind of amazing. But it's our job as progressives or as activists to actually hold them accountable for the things they say they're going to do.
It is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree, and I think though that accountability again, it has to come in action. If all it is well, I'm not going to vote for you. I mean, they've heard that a million times before. And some districts, again, like they're all gerrymandered, so the chance of getting beaten in general is slim. So all they have to do is defeat an unknown primary opponent, like my guy Bill Sombrillo, and he gets back into office. Like we're in a district that's like 57% Democrat. So yeah, we've really, really got to step up supporting these congressional candidates. I mean, Texas primary is already gone. I think Illinois is another one that's down, but there's primaries all the way through September. And again, you mentioned Wasserman Schultz. I want to give a shout out to my friend Tim Canova. Tim's been really awesome. He's given me a ton of help, with the things that I've been working on. He's always been really supportive of me, and fortunately, I've been able to deliver a few favors. And to me, that's the one thing. Like right now, Tim does not have a lot of money. He raised $3.5 million last time. He's raised maybe $100,000, I think. As of December 31st. I don't know what his recent filing is, but I think pretty much every burner, would love to see Wasserman Schultz out. So again, we don't have to donate that much. There's so many of us. A couple bucks to this candidate, a couple bucks to that candidate. Progressive candidates can move mountainy.
I got a good one for you guys. Tim Canova was my very first interview.
Awesome.
cool.
You didn't know he was my first interview.
And yes, he's supporting you. I mean, Tim is one of the execs with the grassroots.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, Wendy May, if you could send that to me through Messenger, I'd love to take a look at it. I had Wendy May on. She's awesome. She's running. She's a Bernie-crat. So she said that she was in an article with Bernie-crats. So that'd be great to see. And Johnny Axam is in the comments. He's also a candidate who I've had on who's running. So we have so many candidates. It's so exciting. So Carly, you are favoring Molly. And Ray, you are favoring Bill and Gary.
Gary.
What about not just your areas, but what are some other candidates that you're kind of excited to hear about? Not even locally, but in other states.
So
if I could throw one out, go ahead, Carly.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just I was just going to say J.D. Scholten. Okay, I'm working with, I could probably take up this whole segment here. I apologize, Carly, but I've been working with about, probably close to 100 candidates. I spoke to Wendy a few months ago. I've been trying to help her remotely. But J.D. Scholten is running against Steve King. Steve King is one of the most repugnant Tea Party Congress people in Iowa. He's passionate. He's raising him 3-1 right now. I got to meet JD at a Democratic Party event in Iowa. Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard attended. JD is a guy. Him again mentioned Nova. Lisa Ring down in Georgia. Another great candidate. Georgia CD1, I believe. He's an amazing candidate. There's so many, that are all. One that was disappointing, Dottie Nygaard had to drop out of the race.
I know.
That was so disappointing. But her mother is ill. But I can't even imagine what that did to her supporters. They had to be crushed. All the work they put in. But Kucinich running for governor. They're all over the country. There's so many awesome candidates out there. I wish I could, give a shout out to them all. I went to the brand new Congress Summit. I got to meet Dorothy Gasquet. She's
I've had her on.
She was the only woman in an all-male unit. Something like 3-4 members. The only woman. She's a real badass, and she deserves to be supported. What her and her campaign manager have gone through on bare bones budget to build this campaign, they're really just pushing as hard as they can. But again, all they get some small contributions. They deserve it. They're not spending that money on hotels, on luxuries, on anything. They need it for the necessities. And again, a lot of them don't have professional campaign managers or can't afford to pay one, so it's falling a good friend of theirs. And people working for no money for months and months at a time. People who can ill afford to do things like that are making tremendous sacrifices. And to me, that's the most important message that needs to get across. To these burners, to these progressives, to these people that are fired up about the issues that, somehow that has to translate to small donations to these campaigns. Or they're all, you just can't do it with no money. You need to have, some to pay for the necessities of running for office.
It's true. If I know we've covered a very wide array of topics. But if there's one thing you want to leave our viewers with, something to think about, or, some candidate to look into, anything like that, what would you like to leave with them?
So one thing I'd like to definitely leave is to look at more than just the congressional candidates. Because I'll be honest, I haven't done the best job of doing this myself, even in my local race. But just to know who's running down ballot is really important, because that is even more local than Congress and would have more of a direct impact potentially on your community. And that might be a little bit more important. Like, for instance, I now know who I'm supporting for lieutenant governor in PA if I'm still here in the general election. And this person obviously wins the primary, and that person is John Fetterman. So, and he was basically a Bernie-crat. I think he was pretty big.
Oh? I met him when he was a Bernie-crat. Then he ditched him and started shilling.
Huh. Okay.
Hardcore. Okay. And now he's endorsed by Ed Rendell and Pap Infuse, which doesn't...
I did not know that. You have made me change my... Because I was for a while, I was for Ariana Behringer, and then she dropped out.
She dropped, right.
So now I'm kind of stuck between someone who is working with Mayor Kenny, or formerly worked with Mayor Kenny, and then John Fetterman.
Yeah, when Rendell endorsed him, I'm like, that's eh.
Bad to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just say look up and down the ballot and figure out who else is running. Mostly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
How about
think my
yourself?
parting shot, I'd like to let my shot would be I'd honestly like to let everybody know that we have what's called the Sassafras and Maple Research Foundation, the first post-secondary occupational listing. It's registered. The curriculum is written and approved. They've gone through the whole process, train people on how to organize. And the person who created it, he's got a 4-0 campaign record. And so I've been getting that education. I can't say enough about it. And so I would encourage anyone, out there to take a look at the Sassafras and Maple Research Foundation, because what they're doing is building the resources to give us education. They want to train these organizers, and then once trained, out to progressive campaigns all over the country. Because that's what we need. You got to have more than inspiration. You got to have more than you need a plan. You need to be able to execute that field operation in order to win any race. And this can be done. It's not just for Congress, like Carly said, state senate, state rep, mayor, council. We need to know the rules of the game. We need to understand the game we're playing, and we need to organize for effective change. So that would be my parting shot.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. I know it's so spur of the moment. I basically put a meme on Facebook and just says, "Who wants to come on?" So thank you guys so much for joining me. To our viewers, thank you so much. I'll be back next week with candidates Monday, Wednesday, Friday, just like always, 9 p.m. So everybody have a great weekend. And thank you guys so much again.
Thanks for having me, Joy.
Absolutely. Everyone have a great weekend.
All right.
Just us? All right, I'm heading out, guys.